Will a glance caught on camera accidentally shatter all the assumptions that have been built over the years? Or is this just the beginning of revealing a much bigger secret behind the K-pop industry? Follow an in-depth walkthrough of Jungkook's drastic change in attitude towards Jimin that now has millions of eyes on them in unprecedented tension. Before we dive deeper into the series of events that shook the world of international entertainment, make sure you have hit the like button as a form of support. Write your theory or opinion in the comments for us to discuss together. And don't forget to subscribe so that you will be the first to get updates from this exclusive investigation. Your support means a lot to our in-depth journalism. Chapter 1. The silence behind the stage. Have you ever wondered what really happens when the stage lights go out? The cheers of fans begin to fade into a faint hum in the distance, and the idols we worship return behind a tightly closed curtain out of reach of the camera lens. All this time, the world has known BTS as a symbol of unshakable brotherhood, a unit bound by the same blood, sweat, and tears for more than a decade. However, what happens if one of the main pillars in the dynamic suddenly shows a change in attitude, so contrasting that it makes the staff who have worked with them for years feel alien? That's the question that now haunts the minds of many after a series of bizarre events involving Jungkook and Jimin began to surface, creating an unprecedented wave of speculation in ARMY circles around the world. It all started on a seemingly ordinary night in Seoul, when the air temperature began to decline and a thin fog began to envelop the skyscrapers that became silent witnesses of their career journey. Jungkook, the youngest member who has always been known for his warm, energetic personality and always showing deep respect and affection for his older brothers, especially Jimin, was suddenly seen in a very different condition. Those who were on the set of the latest content in the HYB building reported a tense atmosphere, a stifling silence that did not usually adorn their waiting room. There are no laughs that usually burst from Jungkook's jokes, no casual physical interactions that usually characterize the closeness of Jikook that fans love so much. On the contrary, there's only a distance that feels very wide and the eyes that seem to hold a very heavy secret burden. The first clue came when Jungkook missed an opportunity to help Jimin while they were doing a pretty grueling choreography training session. For those who followed BTS's journey from the beginning, Jungkook is the most spry figure in caring for the welfare of other members. However, that night, when Jimin seemed a little off balance due to fatigue after hours of work that exceeded the limits of reasonableness, Jungkook just stood still in the corner of the room with a gaze that was difficult to interpret. He did not come closer, did not extend a hand, and did not even give the words of encouragement that usually flow so naturally. This coldness was so striking that their choreographer had to pause the rehearsal session, creating a moment of awkwardness that seemed to freeze time inside the studio. Was the golden mean thinking? Is it just extreme physical exhaustion, or is there something deeper that is beginning to erode their relationship from within? Over time, these signs of disharmony become more and more difficult to hide. In several screenshots taken by staff who did not want to be identified, it is seen how Jungkook consistently maintains physical distance from Jimin during breaks. In the company cafeteria, where they usually sit together sharing food and stories, Jungkook is now more often seen aloof or just talking as necessary to other members, as if there were a transparent but sturdy wall he had built around him to keep Jimin away. This indifference, of course, caused a big surprise because all this time the world saw Jimin as a protective figure and the closest friend to Jungkook since their teenage years. How could a closeness that has stood the test of time and the harsh pressures of the industry turn into something so alien in just a matter of weeks? The real shock explodes when a small incident occurs backstage at an international awards show that has just taken place. Although in front of the cameras, they were still trying to show professionalism as a group. An internal source revealed that there was a brief confrontation in the dressing room that left everyone present speechless. At that time, Jimin tried to approach Jungkook to discuss the order in which they would perform, a common practice. However, Jungkook responded with an act that was considered very disrespectful and out of character. He simply gave a brief nod without looking Jimin in the eye, then immediately put on his earphones and walked out of the room without saying a word. Jungkook's cold and dismissive reaction left Jimin standing in the middle of the room, with an expression that reflected the heartache he tried so hard to hide. News of this change in attitude began to reach the ears of fans through small details captured in live broadcasts or officially released video content. The ARMY, known for its extraordinary acuity in analyzing interactions between members, began to realize something was wrong. Why is Jungkook no longer looking at Jimin with the same twinkle in his eye? Why does he seem to avoid every time Jimin tries to break the atmosphere with his trademark jokes? Speculations began to appear on various social media platforms, ranging from theories about serious personal conflicts to the possibility of external pressure forcing them to keep their distance. However, none of these theories can really explain why Jungkook, who is usually so emotional and honest with his feelings, suddenly transforms into a figure who is so closed and cold towards those closest to him. The emotional tension was further heightened when one of BTS senior managers was seen having a closed-door conversation with the two in a hotel hallway while they were on an overseas tour. An eyewitness said that the atmosphere of the conversation was very far from harmonious. Voices heard from behind the door indicated a debate, although the volume was kept low. What was most surprising was that when the door opened, Jungkook came out with a quick step and a face flushed with emotion, while Jimin remained inside with his head bowed, as if he were carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. This incident seems to confirm that what is happening is not just a small misunderstanding that can be resolved with one word, but a crisis of trust or a very deep conflict of values that is shaking the core of the dynamics of both of them. The public began to wonder, are these the first signs of the end of an era? Or is Jungkook trying to give us an implicit message that we can't fully capture? There's something deeply disturbing in the way Jungkook treats Jimin right now. An attitude that almost feels like a form of rebellion against the expectations that have been placed on his shoulders. His shocking gesture is not just about a lack of interaction, but rather about an active rejection of a narrative of closeness that has long been public consumption. Jungkook's courage to show his discomfort openly, even if it was done in a way that was painful for the other party, showed that there was something very urgent that he wanted to convey, yet words no longer seem to be enough to represent it. In any news that appears, we always see two sides of the coin. On the one hand, there is Jungkook, who seems to be going through a great inner upheaval. And on the other hand, there is Jimin, who is stuck in a difficult position, trying to maintain their dignity and professional relationship amid the onslaught of the cold attitude of the younger brother. Armies around the world were divided. Some were outraged by Jungkook's perceived immaturity, while others were concerned that there were mental health issues or overwhelming industrial pressures holding him back. However, amid all that noise, the truth remains hidden behind layers of corporate secrecy and very strict privacy protocols. What makes this situation even more stressful is the fact that BTS's schedule is still running as usual. They still have to perform on the same stage, sing songs about love and togetherness, and dance in perfect synchronization. The contrast between their flawless performance on stage and the harsh reality behind the scenes creates a painful irony for anyone who knows them. Every dance move they make now feels like an exhausting charade, where every touch that previously felt sincere is now probably just part of the script that must be lived. How could a person continue to pretend when his heart was in a state of breakdown or filled with anger? This tension not only affected the two of them, but also began to spread to other BTS members. RM, as the leader of the group, is often seen stuck in the middle, trying to mediate but seems to have difficulty breaking through the wall built by Jungkook. V and Jean, who used to be thaws, now seem more cautious about acting around Jungkook and Jimin, as if they were walking on a thin layer of ice that could break at any moment. The normally harmonious group dynamic is now transformed into a maze of suspicion and awkward silence, creating a mystery that gets deeper and deeper for anyone who observes them up close. All eyes are now on Jungkook's every move. Will he continue to maintain this coldness? Or will there be a moment of honesty that will put an end to all this speculation? Every post on social media, every word in an interview, and every glance in the eye is now microscopically analyzed by millions of people looking for answers. Jungkook's shock is not just about rude or disrespectful behavior, but about how he dares to break with the image he has built, showing the rawest, most wounded, or perhaps most honest side of himself that we have ever seen. Behind all this drama, however, lies a big unanswered question. What exactly triggered this change in attitude? Was there a specific event that happened between the two of them that became a turning point, or was it the accumulation of long-buried disappointments? Hidden clues began to appear in the lyrics of the songs they released, or in the music playlists they shared with fans. Songs about betrayal, loss of direction, and self-search seem to be secret codes that try to explain what they cannot say directly. The world is witnessing a tragedy written in the language of K-pop, where every notation and every gesture has a double meaning that only those who really care can understand. The climax of this first act occurs when an amateur video taken by someone near the parking area of the HYBE building begins to spread in a limited way in certain circles. In the video, which is blurry but clear enough to identify the figures inside, Jungkook is seen talking in a raised tone to Jimin next to their car. Although his voice was not clearly audible due to the noise of the traffic, Jungkook's body language showed great frustration. He was seen pointing at Jimin with a stern expression, while Jimin just stood there with drooping shoulders. The moment ended with Jungkook getting into his car alone and leaving Jimin standing there in the dark. This incident was irrefutable evidence that their relationship was at a nadir, and ARMY shock was just the beginning of a revelation that would shake the foundations of the global music industry. Right now, the atmosphere around BTS feels like a time bomb, ready to explode at any moment. The silence they showed actually spoke louder than any official statement the agency could issue. The public is left in uncertainty, waiting with bated breath to see what will happen next in this increasingly dark and tense narrative. Jungkook's shocking behavior has opened a Pandora's box of questions about the price of fame, the fragility of relationships under the spotlight, and how far a person can go before he explodes and reveals his true self, no matter how devastating it may be. The digital world never sleeps, and for a global phenomenon as big as BTS, a small spark is enough to set fire to an entire forest of speculation. The amateur video in the parking lot of the HYBE building showing the tension between Jungkook and Jimin spread like an uncontrollable virus, crossing national borders and time zones in a matter of minutes. However, what do we actually see in the blurry footage? Is it just a regular sibling quarrel under the pressure of a busy schedule? Or are we seeing the collapse of a narrative that has been so closely guarded by iron-handed management? This question became even more urgent when the next day, the atmosphere around their headquarters turned suspiciously quiet, a calm that actually felt very threatening before the storm actually hit. The first reaction on the part of the agency was something that could have been predicted: complete silence. There is no official statement, no rebuttal, and no attempt to explain what happened. However, behind closed doors, internal sources whispered about an incredible panic. Crisis management teams are working overtime, trying to trace the origins of the video and doing everything they can to mitigate its impact. However, the damage has already been done. On social media, hashtags related to Jungkook and Jimin's relationship began to dominate the world trend. But this time not with the usual admiring or shipping tone, but with a tone of anxiety, confusion, and even anger. Why does Jungkook look so aggressive? What did Jimin do to make the magne lose the self-control that he usually kept so well? In the midst of this information chaos, a schedule of live appearances on one of the national television stations must still be implemented. It is a moment that is both highly anticipated and feared. All eyes, from music critics to the multi-million army, were glued to their television screens, looking for every smallest detail that could give a clue to what was really going on between the two. And sure enough, what is presented in front of the camera is a play of professionalism that feels so forced to create pain for anyone who watches it. Jungkook appeared with a flat, almost expressionless face, performing every dance move with chilling precision, as if he were a machine that had been programmed to ignore the presence of the person beside him. Meanwhile, Jimin seemed to be trying hard to smile, but the smile never reached his eyes. Her normally warm, radiant gaze now seemed dim, reflecting an emotional exhaustion that no amount of makeup could hide.